The Atlanta International Airport was bustling. It was late on a Friday afternoon, and the hallways looked like rivers of hurried people. Luggage carts bumped into each other, children screamed, executives whispered into Bluetooth headsets while dragging leather suitcases. The metallic voice of the PA system announced delayed flights, urgent connections, and reminders not to leave luggage unattended. It was just another day at the country's busiest airport. But not for Colonel Michael Hargrave. His black leather shoes, polished to the point of reflecting the cold ceiling lights, touched the floor with the firmness of someone who had walked through deserts, jungles, and war zones. His impeccable uniform, decorated with medals that told stories of decades of service, drew attention even among the rushing crowd. But he wasn't there for honor or medals. He was there because of a promise. Outside on the tarmac in a covered truck lay the body of Private Tyler Monroe, 22 years old. From Arkansas. An only child. Recruited 2 years ago, killed 2 weeks earlier in an ambush in northern Syria. The coffin, draped in the American flag, awaited loading into the cargo hold. But this wasn't just another logistical transfer. It was a promise being fulfilled, that no soldier would come home alone. Colonel Hargrave approached the Everwind Airlines counter, orders in hand and a firm expression on his face. "Good afternoon. Colonel Michael Hargrave. I'm here to board Flight 729 to Little Rock, Arkansas. I'm escorting the remains of Private Tyler Monroe. Here are my documents and the official authorization from the Department of Defense." The woman behind the counter, a bored-looking young lady named Shelley, barely looked up. Sir," she typed slowly. "I don't see any special escort notation on this ticket. Do you have a purchased military escort pass?" "I don't need to purchase one. I'm on official duty." "Everything is in the orders," he replied, handing over the envelope with the gold military seal. She gave it a quick glance, frowned, and handed it back. "Sorry, but it's not in the system. No reservation, no boarding. Company policy." Hargrave took a deep breath. It wasn't the first time he'd faced bureaucracy. But this moment, this mission, allowed no mistakes. "Listen, young lady. Private Monroe died serving this country. I promised his mother I'd take him home. Personally. I'm not leaving this airport without boarding with him. He is not flying without me." Shelley crossed her arms. "Sir, if you want to dispute it, you'll have to wait for the manager. I can call him, but..." Before she finished her sentence, a suited man approached, talking on the phone and gesturing. "What's going on here?" "He wants to board with a military body," Shelley said, rolling her eyes. "But he doesn't have a valid ticket." The man introduced himself as Glenn Tuckerman, the airline's terminal supervisor. "Colonel, I understand your position, but there are rules. That's not how it works. You could board the next flight, maybe." "The next flight?" Hargrave interrupted. "And leave a soldier's coffin alone in the cargo hold? Like it's just another suitcase? That is unacceptable." Glenn sighed. "Orders are orders, Colonel. The company has its protocols. Now, if you don't want to cause an incident, I ask you to step aside from the line." The tension in the air was palpable. Hargrave, who had faced Taliban, smugglers, and cartels, had never felt so disrespected. But he didn't yell. Didn't argue. He simply stepped away, for now. Minutes later, he took out his phone and made a call. "General Markson? This is Colonel Hargrave. We have a problem." And what happened in the next 30 minutes would echo across the country. As passengers boarded, unaware of what was happening behind the scenes, something bigger was unfolding. At the gate, 3 uniformed soldiers arrived in a hurry. Then, a county sheriff's patrol car pulled up outside the terminal. Soon after, reporters began to arrive, alerted by an anonymous tip. On Twitter, a post by a young woman who had overheard the conversation went viral. "Airline denies flight to Colonel escorting fallen soldier. This can't be real. Hashtag national disgrace, hashtag Tyler Monroe." In less than an hour, it was a national trending topic. Everwind Airlines, until then ignoring the case, began receiving calls from all over the country. Outraged veterans. Angry politicians. Journalists demanding answers. The CEO in New York was woken up by his panicked assistant. In the departure lounge, passengers, now curious about the cameras, began gathering near the windows and saw the flag-draped coffin still sitting on the tarmac, not yet loaded. "Are they serious?" murmured an older woman, her eyes misty. "Are they really leaving the colonel behind?" That's when another passenger, a former Marine, stood up. "If he doesn't board, I'm not going either." And soon another followed. "Me neither. This is disgraceful." Within minutes, an uproar began. Nearly half the passengers on Flight 729 were standing, outraged. Manager Glenn tried to keep his composure, but it was already too late. A Fox News crew arrived at the terminal. Then CNN. Local stations. All with cameras rolling and microphones ready. Colonel Hargrave was called to the gate. This time, not to be blocked, but to be honored. A senior executive from the airline, sweating in his navy blue tie, appeared suddenly at the terminal. He had flown in by helicopter from a control center to try to contain the damage. He approached the colonel and, in front of cameras and microphones, issued a public apology. "Colonel Hargrave, on behalf of Everwind Airlines, we offer our apologies. We acted with coldness, ignorance, and bureaucracy. This should never have happened." The colonel nodded, but didn't smile. He wasn't there for apologies. He was there for Tyler Monroe. "Then let us board. Now." Minutes later, the gates opened. And for the first time in the airline's history, all passengers got off the plane and formed a silent corridor by the tarmac, hands over their hearts, as the coffin was loaded into the cargo hold. The colonel walked beside it in silence, standing tall, as if in formation. There were tears. Silence. Honor. When the plane took off, it carried a new passenger, the lost, and now recovered respect of a nation. At the arrival in Arkansas, a crowd was waiting. Family, friends, veterans with flags. A 21-gun salute echoed in the evening. And Colonel Hargrave, true to his word to Tyler's mother, handed her the medallion he carried, because he did not return alone. The story became national news. Tyler Monroe's name was remembered in newspapers, schools, and churches. The airline implemented a new policy: immediate and free boarding for all military escorts. But none of that erased the beginning of the story. They tried to stop him. Big mistake. Because some promises can't be broken. And some soldiers, even in death, still teach this world what dignity is. Days after Tyler Monroe's burial, America was still talking about the incident. Talk shows from every corner of the country covered it, with ethics experts and war veterans taking turns in interviews. The video of Colonel Hargrave walking beside the coffin, surrounded by a silent crowd, surpassed 10 million views in 24 hours. But while the country talked, the colonel remained silent. He had fulfilled his mission. He delivered Tyler to his family, attended the funeral, received dozens of interview requests, but declined them all. He didn't want fame. He wanted respect for his fallen comrades, those who died without glory or recognition, but with courage. Tyler's mother, Mrs. Monroe, a soft-spoken woman with trembling hands, called the colonel 2 days after the funeral. "Colonel," she said, voice choked, "you kept your promise. My son came home. And he wasn't alone." The colonel closed his eyes. In war, he had seen mothers cry for sons. But this call was different. She wasn't just thanking him. She gave new meaning to the silence he carried in his heart. "Mrs. Monroe, it was an honor to escort your son. He was a good soldier." There was silence on the other end. "Did you know he wanted to leave the army? That he wanted to be a teacher?" Hargrave didn't know, and remained silent. He said he wanted to teach underprivileged kids. Wanted to show them that even from a small town, even without a father, they could succeed. But the army came first. He said the country needed him. And he went. The colonel felt a lump grow in his throat. That war, that ambush, the body now buried, was all that remained of a young man who wanted to teach reading and writing. In the following days, a letter written by Tyler Monroe, found by his mother among his belongings, surfaced. He had written it weeks before dying. "If I don't come back, I want people to know I did what I believed was right. Not for medals. Not for glory. But because someone had to go. If my story is ever told, I hope people remember I had a dream, to change lives. And if I can't do it in a classroom, may my death at least make someone think, it's worth fighting for respect." The letter was published in various newspapers, read aloud in Congress, and used in a session.